To me, what is the most significant aspect of the whole thing is the fact that we have opened a dialogue with the National Park Service people. The National Park Service people would not have entrusted us with their negatives unless they were convinced that we have something to offer, and we have absolutely no vested interests one way or the other. We have no comments to make on the political implications of the numbers. We were doing this as a scientific research project, and we wanted to get to the truth, and we were not taking sides with anybody, and they realized that, and that's why they gave us the original information, original data. Now, the one thing that we realized is the fact that knowing what we know about data acquisition, how to take photographs, and how to count, and how to estimate, I think we can do the National Park Service a great service in providing them with a blueprint of what is it that they should be done in the future. Because every time there is a march in Washington, there is a question about the numbering and the counting and so on. I mean, and marches have been conducted along the mall since Martin Luther King in the early 60s, and this has been 30 years, and there should be some better methods of estimating the number of people, and we've looked into this and suggested right away that, first of all, a helicopter should never be used for that, because a helicopter is unstable, and it is wiggling all the time. So if you take a picture like this, it's looking this way, next picture may be looking down this way, and so on, and it shakes and vibrates, and the fear of falling on the crowd would make the helicopter move on either side of the crowd and therefore take oblique pictures. And we suggest that this photography or the imaging for the crowd estimation from here on should be done using a stable platform, meaning a winged aircraft flying directly overhead of the people with two systems looking down. The first system is a digital camera that can look at the terrain, and actually we can fix the altitude of the camera or the plane with the camera itself inside and figure out or try to get exactly that camera can see a single individual. So it will be one picture element. So you can actually automate the calculation very fast, even faster than doing it from videotapes. And the other system should be a regular aerial camera with 9-inch film, high resolution, thin base, with overlap, so that you would be able to have this material for archival purposes. That if anybody would do this calculation, he would come up with the number with absolutely no discussion. So there is a very good thing that resulted from the questioning of the numbers this time, because it may be a service to the country to have the National Park, to give the National Park Service the proper tools to do the job they have been asked to do by Congress. Thank you very much. I'll be here to answer questions. And
before we take questions, I just wanted to make two quick points. One I should have at the outset, and that is that Boston University has done these calculations as a service. I think there has been some misimpression that we had been commissioned or paid to do this, and that is not the case. We've attempted to maintain complete independence and the academic integrity of the effort. I would acknowledge that Michael Gillen, as a colleague of Dr. El-Baz, has played a significant role in that. We appreciate his concern as a scientist trying to apply science to a public policy issue. And as a scientist, Dr. Gillen is also very concerned with details and has pointed out that he is not a professor of physics at Harvard, but an instructor in physics in the core curriculum at Harvard. I'm not sure the distinction is terribly great. I'm impressed with his work as a scientist, as a professor, instructor, and journalist. And now we'll take questions.
thank you. And I might want to make one comment about what Kevin just said about the scientific integrity. When we wanted to do this, when I accepted to do that on behalf of my staff, they may never let me forget it. I wanted to make absolutely certain that we are doing this on our own as a service, that people would want to respect the scientific integrity of what is being done, and there would be absolutely no pressure from any group of any sort for any reason. And I wanted also people to know that there are institutions, like universities, like an educational institution, that is willing to step in immediately and help the cause of truth and knowledge, and with an open heart and open mind, with no strings attached, and so that we would make we just underline the fact that science and scientists and educational institutions can be above board, and they are. Thank you.
I noticed on your photographs that you had a figure of 127,000 at one point. Was that to cover the food areas? You know,
Yes, that is the concession area on the Constitution Avenue.
So those were counted in your calculations?
Yes. There is one more picture that I would like to show here for a quickie. That is our 6 people per square meter. I have here in the corner 6 as a square meter. If any one of you would like to test it, please do.
Can I ask you just a
Yes.
mathematical question?
Sure.
The range from 670 to 1 million. Is there an equal probability that the true number was any number in that range? Or
Yes,
Is there anything like a bell curve of greater probability that it's?
No, and that we would have been able to do if we did it the proper sampling of all of the sample sites and get an accuracy on each one of them. And we never had the time to do that. We'll be quite heavily involved. But there would be. But since there isn't, then we can say that the real number is anywhere between these two.
Doctor, why is it that the margin of error remains in a range that seems, to me at least, fairly high?
Yeah, because of the inherent problems. Okay, because of the inherent problems in the data itself, because of the obliquity, because of the very far from the crowds, because of the resolution, because of all of the problems in the original data.
Dr. El-Baz,
Yes, sir.
the organizers maintain that the peak times were between 12 and 3 for the march. Were any photos analyzed during those times?
No, and we actually asked the National Park Service this question very specifically, and they did tell us, and I think I mentioned it, that during this time there was an emergency, and the helicopter had to take a lady and her child to a hospital, and their regulations say that if there was an emergency, they would have to do that, so they never acquired photographs during what the march organizers say is the peak time.
The ABC News footage, the new ABC footage of the march from the helicopter, was that used at all?
No, we could not mix and match the data we used. We looked at the ABC footage and other photographs taken which showed at given times more people per unit area than others, but we couldn't really take some part of certain coverage and some data from another coverage. We wanted to stick to two things: the base map that was produced by the Geological Survey as our area to estimate the area, and one set of the photographs by the government, by the National Park Service, taken at a very specific period of time, and so we would not mix apples and oranges, or will not mix different sources. So we stuck to the map of that and the photographs taken at the time between 3:15 and 3:30.
Did the Nation of Islam express an opinion one way or the other about your work?
I'm sorry, I do not know exactly what it is, but we heard on the ABC News, Minister Leonard Mohammed talked and said something about the fact that peak times were not there, and so there was some other point, but I do not personally recall the exact words, but there was a mention of the fact that the Park Service did not fly over this at that time, and then there are inherent problems in the photography, and therefore these 2 points would underline the fact that the National Park Service estimate may be far below the real number. Yes?
I'm sure you're aware that over the last 35 years, many of the Park Service's crowd estimates have been subject to controversy. And I'm also sure you're aware that there are photographs of those marches. Can you say that this technique, first of all, whether or not this technique could be used to analyze those other marches, and what might be the outcome of that analysis?
Definitely you can try to do that with these other marches. But however, as you go farther in history, I will bet that the photographic data is a lot worse because of the film, because of the type of cameras used, because of the lenses and so on, because things have improved in the last 30 years. And I also doubt that there will be anything that is good enough to have much better estimates because of the inherent problems of the acquisition of the data. Because it means that they will also have taken this using helicopters, that they will taking it using helicopters, using with a camera. Probably in the past they even didn't use the 35 millimeters. They probably used a television videotape only, and so I think the problems would be many if you would open the potential of recalculation. I understand myself now that all kinds of groups are on the phone right as we speak with the National Park Service talking about recount, and I want to say publicly that my associates and graduate students have prevailed on me to refuse any offers to do so. Yes, sir.
With higher resolution and with a lower margin of error, you have now actually lowered the estimate, haven't you?
Yes, we have by at least by around 40,000.
Dr.
Yes, sir.
I'm from the Nation of Islam, and to answer the gentleman's questions, we think that you have done an excellent job. We realize you can't get more than 16 ounces in a pound, and with what they gave you, minus those things that were missing, we from the Nation of Islam would like to applaud you for your work, and even though the numbers did go down 33,000, it was because you had pictures that indicated what was going on at that time, but we maintained that the peak time of the crowd, those pictures were never given to you. At the time those last pictures were taken, people in fact were beginning to board buses, trying to get back to work on Tuesday morning, and we say that that was a million-man march plus.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. John, are you saying that people left before Louis Farrakhan made his speech when in fact that was billed as the high point of the day?
Well, the high point of the day, David, I think, was them coming there. But we did not want people not to miss another day's work. So, in fact, buses were being boarded at the time the Park Service was actually taking what was to be their last photographs. Buses had to go as far away as the West Coast. So we wanted people to get home as early as possible.
Dr.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, I think one of the points he's making is that calculations you make really don't account for people who already come or
Yes.
already gone, because the crowd even could have roughly the same size and people were coming and going all the time.
Sure.
And so that,
The crowd dynamics are very difficult to calculate exactly because people tend to move around even during the time when they are there. So that's why it is really crowd estimation is not an easy task by any means, and you have to think about crowd estimation at a very specific point in time only because there is no other way of doing it. And that's why we were saying, for instance, that if we have a stable platform looking vertically down on the crowd, going straight down the middle of the mall, taking pictures, it will do so repeatedly at least every hour on the hour to be able to make an estimate of how many people were at that given hour and how many people were at that given hour, regularly and consistently like that, because you really cannot make a sweeping statement about the crowd that was there for the march. Okay, they were there when?